Good afternoon, everybody. Today is May 15, 2025. This is the Budget Committee. It's now 1 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. I'm here. Council members Green and Morell are here as well. Council member Green moves to approve the Budget Committee meeting minutes from April 17, 2025. Council member Morell seconds. All in favor? Aye. Those pass unanimously, 3-0. Item number 3 is the update on the status of the 2024 annual audit. Hey, Becky. Sorry.
Good afternoon. I am Becky Hammond, partner with Harvick Ingram, partner for the audit engagement for the 2024 year-end, and happy to report we are actually ahead of schedule from where we were last year at this time, and everything is on track to be able to issue the financial statements on time by the June 30th deadline set by the legislative auditor.
That's the thing that's most important to us. Is there any information that you need that you don't have yet?
No, we've been getting flooded with information that we've been requesting, and working hand in hand with Frida and her team, and getting everything we're asking for.
Great. Frida's on it, you're getting the information.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right. Next up is item number 4, the budget reports. So if CAO and Finance want to present on that? And I guess as you all get seated, sort of my two macro questions are, is the property revenue being adjusted based on what we saw yesterday in REC, and then secondly, the personnel spending. And hang on one second. Mr. Hagman, we will not be voting on items 10A through Q. So you're welcome to stay if you want to, but otherwise, you have more important things to hang out with us. Thank you. All right. So I guess I just want to start with the revenue collection report. And yesterday we had REC members, and one of the findings was that, I think I have this right, the projection was about $189 million on property tax, and we wound up closer to $171 million. What is the projection this year for 2025 for property tax?
So it is based on the same assumptions as last year. So we're going to have to adjust that assumption and then see what we think what it looks like in 2025. And I'm ready to discuss that further at the next REC is my plan.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want any of us to feel ambushed, right? And you don't want to get a million questions from us about how does this change. So if this is the new normal, then I think we just have to adjust to it.
It's from what I'm learning, and I've been learning this over the past 3 months or so, is that this has always been the normal. Is that in the first year of the quadrennial readjustments, that there has been, basically that same level of compliance. That's what we have actually collected versus what we build. That's always been the case. So what I'm going to have to do is go and try to get some data on how that has progressed throughout the rest of the cycle, and what the compliance rate I should actually use should be.
You raised that yesterday, and I forgot to ask you this, so I'm glad you said it again. The school board ruled millage board. I think sheriff ruled per millage board. City ruled none of its millages board. So I guess the fact that the supermajority of the millages weren't roughly two-thirds of the total mills rolled forward has that big of an impact on collections, even though the school board and the sheriff rolled forward.
Those rollback was built into the assumption. So the forecast was based on a rollback.
So it was based on not only the city rolling back, but also on sheriff and the school board rolling back.
That does not affect the general fund forecast.
Okay, all right. So it's not affecting, I guess that's what I'm struggling with is if there was if it was built in and we didn't roll forward, then why is the delta existing?
Because of the difference between what we build and what was actually collected.
What was collected. Okay, so we're working on the collection.
And we're working on how to explain that, how to project that, or how to predict that for 2020, for the rest of this year and for 2026 also.
Yeah. I mean, the reason I'm asking so many questions is because the next thing is the personnel projection right now, which is in the red. So I just want to make sure, and we're dealing with that, and continue to say out loud that I've asked our staff to do so. I hope they've been in touch with the CFO. But if we haven't raised revenue on items in 5, 7, 10 years, it's time for us to dust those things off and take a hard look and make. I mean, you've shown yesterday how much things have increased. And so obviously if prices and labor and salaries have all gone up, then there has to be an adjustment reasonably with other sources of revenue for the city too. Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Chairman Russo, members of the committee. Couldn't agree more, and I think later or whenever your pleasure, we're going to kind of go into our thoughts and our processes for a methodology, for a little bit more of a belt tightening measure, both on the cost cutting as well as the revenue enhancement side of it. I think you'll see most governments right now, whether it's state, local, or across the country, really aligning their expenditures with their expenditures with their revenues a lot more clearly. As we've said in the last couple of years, we were flush with cash. Now it's important for us to maintain a structural integrity, and we do have a thought and a plan to ensure that while maintaining that $133 million reserve, as well as making sure that citizens are getting services that they so vitally need. It is a little bit. It's not draconian, but I think if we start now and really start focusing and leaning in on two items that I just mentioned, cost cutting where applicable. I'm not talking about hiring freeze for police, fire, anything that would be detrimental to the progress that we've made as a city, but small things that add up. I think we have a lot of control over. As you mentioned, there is a forecasted personnel deficit of around 70 million. Over half of that right now is already spent simply because of the security enhancements that we had to have post-January, Super Bowl, small things like barricades, archers, things of that nature. All that added up over time related to guarding those. So it wasn't totally not expected that we were going to be spending a little bit more after the January 1st attacks. Now we're at a stage where the bulk of, I believe, public safety overtime has been utilized based on our event schedule, and now we can better start aligning some of those expenses. And then lastly, I'll pause there, and before I dive into the presentation and see if you have any thoughts on how you would like us to proceed. I'm happy to dive into that. But most importantly, I'll articulate, despite it being about a $70 million projected deficit, we're going to have other costs down the road. We want to make sure we're prepared for that. But it's very manageable. When you have over $1 billion budget, 70 million seems extreme, but it's less than 10% overall. And I think we'll manage our way through it. Certainly we have no other option, and certainly we will ensure the financial structure and integrity is always articulated.
Yeah, we know how important it is. I guess, I'm going to put on my cards on the table here, obviously, which is, like we've had this discussion, beginning of the year, we're in a financial crisis, we're not in a financial crisis, where do we stand? And these numbers are through the end of April, and so I think we're all cognizant of what happened January 1, Sugar Bowl, Super Bowl. There has to be more hiring and overtime. But I guess should we expect this to be kind of the end of this spending in overtime? Because by these numbers, 50 million to 70 million is overtime spending, so that's the super majority. Or are we really looking at, we're going to have a $180 million personnel deficit at the end of the year because this trend is going to continue every single month?
I think the personnel projections are based on year-end. I think that would be the worst case scenario based on year-end, the $70 million deficit.
All right.
I think that as we build the budget for 2026, we will better budget known overtime so that we do not run into the red as we did here or as we have in the past. We've built often a lot of cushion into our positions, and sometimes our other operating year covers our personnel deficit, which we typically run each year. We just have our other operating to carry it over. But as the budgets continue to be aligned and better, more specific for exactly the needs, you'll probably see in 2026 a budgeted amount of overtime, whereas in the past years you have not really seen that.
Okay. And for the departments that are running the most significant overtime, like fire, police, looks like sort of EMS, how are we balancing DPW? How are we balancing both the obvious public safety need of it, also not profligate spending, and the till is open, so we're going to keep on writing checks?
Sure, I think that's part of the next detailed strategy. In the presentation, I'm really only estimating the cut in overtime to hover around $5 million, despite what you're seeing there, simply because it would be, I think, a detriment to our public safety agencies to pause the progress that we're making. So what I'm proposing is making up that difference in many other aspects throughout the complication of our budget, but not, I would never say we're going to cut overtime. I think the most we're probably going to see to be able to manage an effective organization is maybe $5 million of that at most. Maybe we'll get with the departments more specifically. But really making up for some of those deficits through other cost-cutting measures or revenue enhancements.
Okay. Well, do any of my colleagues, like Councilmember Green? Yeah, and then I was thinking after we ask these questions, we would jump to your slide.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. CEO, good to see you this afternoon.
Good to see you too.
Governor Landry has spoken with confidence about the state being reimbursed for security-related expenses around the Super Bowl. Also, with regards to the Homeless Transition Center, the state has said that they are likely to be reimbursed. Is that monies that are available to the city for which we should also apply to the Department of Homeland Security for reimbursement?
Chairman Russo, Councilmember Green, yes, there's an opportunity. I know our Homeland Security agencies are actively pursuing and trying to recover as many funds as possible. We have them as expenditures built into our budget in the case that we don't reimburse in any sort of way, so we are paying bills and we're hoping for a reimbursement. But I think it's more prudent for us to financially plan. I have to pay for them and hope and enjoy the replenishment should there be a reimbursement process.
I absolutely, positively agree. Has the governor's office had any communications with the city since the city really would have incurred type of expenses that the state has experienced relative to security and also homelessness in general?
I'm reluctant to answer definitively, simply because I haven't talked with Colin or Chief Patrick or some of the other public safety directors that may have more of a direct line with GOSEP and the like. My office and me directly, no, I have not heard those conversations, but I typically wouldn't be the person that would hear those conversations. It would typically be through Homeland Security, FEMA, GOSEP, EDU, those type of agencies. So I'll follow up and find out what the latest is on that.
I'd appreciate it. I wouldn't want us to not be able to get the same sort of reimbursements that the governor is so confident that the Department of Homeland Security is going to make available to the state. So whatever you can do, and then share with us if there's something that we need to know, because maybe we can help in terms of reimbursements. Thank you.
Sorry. All right, Mr. Montagne, I think be prudent now to talk about this. If you want to move to the slide presentation that you sent us.
Yes.
We're happy to.
That would be wonderful.
Thank you.
Shelby's going to come and.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cooper.
Shelby. Tell me when you're ready.
Yeah, wait a second, help you get it loaded in there.
All right. Chairman Russo, members of the committee, thank you for hosting us today. As previously mentioned, I think we are really trying to be as fiscally responsible as possible in preparation for activities at the state that may detrimentally affect our budget, or just making sure that we provide the day-to-day services needed on the public safety elements. We are recommending, and as discussed, and equally as important, perhaps not the amount of collection of revenue as anticipated specifically on the property tax. We're going to ensure to implement belt-tightening measures that we hope will carry the city through, obviously, the end of this fiscal year, but really set a strong structural baseline for 26 and beyond. I will not be verbose and go over the financial strategy over the last 3 years and the importance of maintaining our reserves and our fund balances and moving forward. I think I've talked about those ad nauseum, but I'll go specifically into the overall strategy of cost reduction plan and revenue enhancements, and then follow up that and commit to providing a more detailed plan moving forward, specifically for the agencies that would or could be affected. So, want to start the current fiscal outlook. Obviously, the political uncertainty, some of the slow revenue growth, and the rising demand for city services are increasing. The pressure on the budget over the past several years, the city has made meaningful hundreds of millions of dollars of investments in workforce, infrastructure, public safety services, while navigating the evolving fiscal environment. A lot of the investments that we made in the last presentation, I tried to highlight how important both the council and administration made into our community. Obviously, the reconciled 2024 data and the 2025 projections, along with the identified risks, underscore the need for fiscal discipline and operational flexibility to maintain the city's financial health. As I mentioned previously, I think you're going to see city governments and state governments now really lean in on this with some of the uncertainties, but also the end of real cash flush days of ARPA and some of the other federal investments to organizations. So the administration anticipates that, we can go to the next one. So this is a roadmap essentially to get us to where we believe we need to be. The administration anticipates that action will be required to ensure the city's long-term structural balance, where recurring expenses are funded solely by recurring revenues. While the city entered 25 in a historically strong financial position, spending projections and revenue assumptions indicate that we may need corrective action to maintain and preserve the $100 million emergency disaster fund, as well as the 133 charter mandated savings fund. The administration is pursuing, and certainly I say administration, but this will certainly be in conjunction with the council. Many of these items will be vital to have your support and engagement through the process to align spending with available resources and preserve city's ability to invest in future priorities. The presentation outlines these opportunities and provides a roadmap for implementation. Once again, these are options and solutions we feel that can drastically decline our projections. So a recommendation on non-essential positions, hiring freezes. Now, I want to be very clear, this is not public safety, these are not police officers, these are not firefighters, these are not safety-sensitive positions, these are not revenue-enhanced positions. These are unbudgeted new, hey, I need a new deputy director, or hey, I need a new office worker free. Just really trying to maintain the extended requests that we often get throughout departments and organizations in order to better align our services. We anticipate this only saving up to $5 million. As you'll see, the belt-tightening aspects are not major. This is not COVID again, where we're furloughing or recommending anything of that nature. And a lot of what you'll see is a little bit of nickel and diming in the sense that we're slightly adjusting initiatives and projections higher so that we can make sure that our expenses match our revenues. Second one, as I mentioned, a little bit more in detail, was the overtime. Obviously absent.
Wait, can we stop here for 1 second?
Sure.
So for non-essential positions, what about positions that actually generate money to the city?
Absolutely,
So
hire immediately, and I was going to recommend, maybe after the meeting or sometime, some of the civil service positions in there are revenue producing, so I'd love to work with you to move those forward, so revenue producing positions should be top of the list hiring, and that includes EMS. I think EMS is one of our revenue producing agencies, so you'll probably see some proposals coming down there, so not to get ahead of your question, but we should be hiring those revenue producing positions at full speed.
Okay, Councilmember Moreno.
And I'm assuming that the hiring freeze wouldn't be applicable to positions that are a result of like federal grants or other grants.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely
Thank
not.
you.
This is really, and you'll see by the minimus amount of the number, this is, as I mentioned, some of those positions we would like to have, but don't need to have, essentially. And my own office included. So I'll say that I am not hiring such positions that I'd like to have specifically try to comport with this same criteria.
So in other words, needed positions continue to be hired once or on the back burner for right now.
Yes.
Okay.
Overtime spending, as I articulated previously, we don't want to stop the progress that our public safety agencies are having. I think we can be intelligent about how to better allocate and monitor, and that's why you see reduced overtime spending by a smaller number as compared to the actual deficit it's producing. We're going to work directly with our public safety agencies to ensure that the mission gets accomplished, and maybe we're just a little bit more intelligent how we're providing those overtime services. Slide 8 is something I'll certainly need the council's help and support with. And I'll just boil it down. We're at the point where we in some cases, we are spending down our fund balance, as you all know, as our external agencies are growing their fund balance. So the logic here is, as a city that funds them simply mostly on a cash basis a lot of times, I understand that each agency may need some piece of reserve to fix a pipe, whatever the item may need, but certainly not to the level where we are spending our fund balance as they grow theirs. So because they come to us with a request, the rationale is, and this is $30 million, so it's not a small amount of money by any means. Our preference would be, as we build the budget in the future and their costs associated, they would draw down their fund balances, as instead of us drawing down our fund balance, we are on a cash basis relative to their expenditures.
Can I ask this question too? I'm not trying to pick on the sheriff. She just happens to have the highest number here. The sheriff shows, as of audit 2023, $14 million cash on hand. They just had the millage renewal, which I think is close to $13 million annually. It seems like then the sheriff should be bonding out on their own capacity rather than the city spending $20 million on phase 3 or anything else that is facility related.
I think the capitalization of their revenue would be very positive for the city. Absolutely moving forward. But also, the fund balance, and with all respect, I understand, and I would never want to leave an organization without some level of fund balance, but where there's excess, we should be, and where there's excess, as we draw down our fund balance, just doesn't make sense.
I guess, Gilbert, we're happy to work with you. I think maybe what may be helpful is just develop a plan that's very public facing, so that way everybody knows and it's consistent and predictable to everybody. But then, particularly for, the public defender's office is almost $5 million, this report is $6 million. The sheriff has 14. You can bond out against those amounts. Now, it's not $200 million, but you can probably do $30 million against 14 plus your villages pretty easily. So I just think we ought to bake into that not only operating but capex too.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Next slide is, and we've had great discussion on the revenue bonds to pay off the judgment list. What we have built into the budget, obviously, is the school board payment. I know this is a much discussed topic, but from just a financial perspective, if we added the amount from our general fund in the potential settlement with the school board to the revenue bonds, that would free up $20 million this year. general fund activity. So what I'm recommending, should that continue to move forward, we include that settlement with the revenue bonds so that we can free up our general fund obligation to be able to create room for 2025 and 2026.
I would say this. I think fundamentally I'd be fine with that as long as I knew the bonds would be sold fairly short order. And I know Amanda in my office has been out, but I really think like over the next 30 to 60 days, the collective we should make it a priority to get that done.
I would love them sold tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm very much in the same realm.
All right. So I know maybe Gilbert, as we're talking about the positions to be funded, this has to be top of the list too, about can we get this on a council agenda in the next couple of meetings so that way we can get the bonds sold.
Yes, sir.
All right.
The other portion is, I mentioned this in the last presentation, there are some expenditures tied to the general fund that are here capital. We're in May, and we may or may not see some of those come to fruition as far as the need, whether it is some major capital project, whether it's Six Flags, whether it's a charity, whether it's an NSA. I'm not even being specific, but what I'm saying though is if we get to a point in the year, specifically November, and those funds aren't needed to be spent this year, I recommend we remove them from the general fund and tie them back to the capital fund where they should be in general. That would free up, almost $22 million this year alone and for future years. It's just a little bit more smart way to use vital dollars. If we can tie it to a revenue bond for judgment list, let's do that, free up general fund. Likewise, if we can tie it to a capital fund, and certainly we would need your all's support to be able to tie a capital project to capital funding. The plan and anticipation is still to go to the public in November for those bonds, and every constituency that I meet with, I'm really saying, like, if you want new air conditioners, you need your people to come out and support this bond initiative as we're designating this specific criteria, and we hope and anticipate the $600 to $700 million, which would pay profound dividends for this in the long-term future, and I hope create a plan for future administrations to ensure that every 2 years, at most 3 years, there is a capital budget bonding capacity so that we can predict and spend accurately. That was something that was really detrimental to the city for many years, not having a reoccurring bonding cycle. I hope this changes that trajectory, and in the case of the general fund, we hope to slide over those general fund expenses, specifically this year and into the future, to our bond list.
And Gilbert, like I know you said this earlier, but just to repeat it, having the $133 million cash on hand in addition to our declining bond defeasance is what opens up that bonding capacity.
Absolutely, yes.
So I just say that because I know there's been a lot of debate about the number ought to be, but we have to keep it at a certain high level to make sure that our bonding capacity remains as high as possible.
Our bonding capacity is very strong, and I think we should use that and take advantage of that and move forward with some catalytic projects.
Great. Okay.
This is working with the council specifically for some of the things I just mentioned, for some of those fund balance projects for this year, and figuring out maybe something that can be either scaled back or looked toward in the future, or just having a real working relationship relative to how we can manage through this year based on time. I know it's May. The end of the year we're gonna blink and it's gonna be there. So I want to make sure that we at least are working collaboratively to ensure that if we're not moving forward on a project, we're holding hands on not moving forward with the project, which would free up to $5 to $10 million. Nothing significant, but as you're seeing, I hope thematically, the onesie-twosies are really what's going to solve our budget, cost reduction plan. And then lastly, I believe that's lastly on the expenditure side, every year on our other operating, we carry over a significant amount of surplus simply because sometimes the contracts aren't fully expensed and there's a whole nother dynamic of it. I think we've better aligned that in most recent years, so I'm not over relying or calculating on a large $30–40 million of other operating sliding back over to general fund, but I think that we'll be able to intelligently figure out $10 to $20 million to curtail some of those other operating, this is contractual spend, on what is absolutely necessary and what is not.
Can
And
I ask a
once again-
question there?
Yes, ma'am.
Who's going to be doing the auditing?
Like our annual audit?
Yeah, I mean-
Or this?
This piece.
It, you know, it'll be led by the CAO office, finance, and then the agency that is specifically holding that contract would be the most ideal path forward,
Okay, thanks.
and obviously council. The next stage is the other side of the equation, revenue generating opportunities that we're moving full steam on. Obviously, I've already discussed amnesty. We're set to move forward on that, and as you see and have heard from the latest REC, we'll be including some of those property tax collections as part of that. It's real money that we'll be bringing in and hope anticipate to continue down that. Continue to work with Sewage and Water Board relative to their reimbursements to the city. The Sewage and Water Board owes us a profound amount of money, and we're working with them diligently to try to recover that was available. And I will say, you know, we're trying to understand their fund balance and their financial situations, and the new investments the city has made is quite robust. So at some point, we do not want to lose our financial gains as Sewage and Water Board continues to maintain more and more of a fund balance or expenditures that maybe we could do without. I guess what I'm saying is that we'd like to work more closely with Sewage and Water Board to, one, not provide as much resources that we have historically, and then two, recover those resources where applicable. And then the next slide, I think, is one that will vitally need the council engagement and support, and Councilmember Giarrusso had articulated, and that's an update on fines and fees. Some of them have not been changed in 10, 15 years. I think our evaluation and assessment of these fines and fees will be vital. As everyone has mentioned, costs have gone up everywhere, including salaries and the like, and we will recommend some structure with other fines and fees. Obviously, the elephant in the room would be the trash fee. I know that's going to take a lot of discussion and dynamics, but at some point, we may want to also look into what is fair and equitable as far as that goes, as we talk about all the fines and fees, and obviously have public communication, council engagement, and the like. We're not going to propose anything that you all would not obviously support or the public isn't cognizant of.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes,
for
sorry.
CAO.
Councilmember
No, that's
Green.
right. I didn't press the button. I was just going to ask.
Sorry.
There's also that other side that we don't talk about a lot, the amount of money that the city is owed in fines and fees from the public.
Yes, sir.
Do you care to suggest what we might be doing to looking at collecting some of those fees that have been outstanding for years? And can you estimate how much the city actually is owed in fees?
Yes. Are you asking, do we know the number? We know it on red light cameras, parking adjudication, and some others. I'll have to get back maybe on the safety and permits and some of the other items with you. I'll jot it down to ensure that we follow up with you for the total amount of money owed. It's significant, and also one of the reasons we're becoming significantly more aggressive and in contracting a lot of that work out to ensure the city is paid for what services it has provided. I mean, you'll see it in OPSE, secondary employment. You see it in a lot of different spots where bills just have not been paid.
But, like, can I ask this question? When's the last time we've raised parking in the city? Like, just the part, does anybody know, like, when's the last time? John Harris has, like, been here a while. He's shaking his head. So, I mean, it's been a while. Well, and look, it's one of those things that affects tourists more than locals. We haven't raised it in a long time. It just seems like that's an obvious revenue source increase that shouldn't upset the public.
And I'll always articulate this because I think it was a very bold and strong move by both the council and the administration not to raise taxes.
Right.
We forewent $200+ million to ensure that the public was not paying more money on their tax bill. That doesn't mean we can't look at other fines and fees to enhance or supplement some of those revenues as costs have obviously gone up.
Oh, I want to say something real quick, Joe.
Yeah. Councilmember Morrell.
I wasn't going to say anything, but everybody started talking, so I guess I'll say something.
We'll stop.
Go back to the previous slide.
You knew you wanted to say something.
I didn't, but it's going to be really hard to make the case to the public that we should raise their trash fees when, as of right now, on August 1st, there'll be no one picking up trash in the quarter.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'm just to be honest, because once you have something like that happen, if there is, and hopefully Senator Harris's bill will pass, and if the city should fail, FQMD will step in, but it'll be hard for us to look at the public with a straight face when we're pre-terminating trash pickup services in an area with no recognized provider, especially considering what the public went through after Ida when we had to overdo the trash haulers then. I mean, we've been here before. If we have an instance in which city services aren't delivered, good luck trying to convince the public we should increase the fees.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I don't think that is anything short-term that, like when I say short-term, in the next, maybe perhaps this administration would be proposing, but I'm trying to think in the future. You know, you all will have certainly, obviously many of you will be up there, many of us on this side will not. I think setting the city up for structural integrity in the future is going to be vital, and I say that only to mention for the future. I think it's something that will have to be discussed and addressed in the right venue at the right time. And this goes the same for special events permitting. You know, certainly that we want to make sure that the city is not, you know, is recouping the necessary expenses related to some of the special events. Obviously, we want to continue to celebrate the cultural heritage and all the things that make New Orleans so special, but we also want to be equitable for what resources we do provide as a result of some of those events and festivities. So I'll continue to elaborate on research and evaluation. This is obviously the beginning, but hopefully sets a roadmap for where we are going for the future. I mean, if you're going to do a back-of-napkin addition of all those potential revenue enhancements, expenditure cuts, that's about $120 million, and it's unknown for the expenditures, the revenue enhancements. We're talking real money that will be able to structurally balance and ensure the fiscal integrity as always designed, maintaining the structure of that reserve as well as the reoccurring expenses. I'm not saying it's going to be simple, easy, or simplified in any sort of way. We'll have to have real work and engagement, but I think it truly is, as we've said, this last year of the organization, setting the structural integrity of the organization and the fiscal house is vital. With that, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I will stand for any questions or concerns. Oh, did I miss some slides?
There's some slides at the back, but I think they're kind of summation more than anything. I
Okay.
mean, you're welcome to go through them if you want to.
Oh, no, I just wanted to, the numbers I wanted to highlight, you know, 118 million in potential savings and about 20 million potential in revenue enhancement. You know, we're looking at a $70 million deficit. So we'll be okay, obviously, and we'll continue to work with you to ensure that we are engaged and collaborative and communicative.
Right. Sounds good. I don't see any other questions from my colleagues, so I think with that, we will move to the procurement update.
Okay. Thank you, member.
Thank you. Yeah, but they're not on floor. It's not a voting item. So again, for the public, I will say this now for the umpteenth time, because of issues we've had in the past with people taking over public comment. We don't take public comment on non-voting items, but I'll take up your comments on item number 7.
I think you guys can get started.
Okay, I'd like to introduce certainly Deputy Director of Finance, Frida Richardson Taylor, as well as Mr. James Simmons, who is our new CPO, and Mr. Gregorian. From the Law Department, Mr. Simmons comes to us taking on this assignment. He came in the middle of much of the reform, and he's gotten up to speed quite well. Ms. Richardson Taylor will drive the presentation, but certainly Mr. Simmons will be able to answer some questions as it relates to his observations of the current process as well as the improvements he'd like to see. Thank you.
This is a solemn meeting.
There you go. We're just trying to get the clicker working.
I was trying to get the clicker working.
Yeah, all right.
I'm sorry.
We don't make things easy for you, Frida.
I know. I'll just use this.
Because if the click isn't working, you might just have to control it. Oh, wait, exit out, click out of this. And yeah, you just have to do it that way.
Okay.
Put it on the other side. What's more convenient for you? Yeah.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Sorry about that. Trying to get that adjusted.
No problem.
So we want to start with our, let me see. Sorry about that. So our first slide is about the City of New Orleans Procurement Policy Manual. We have worked effortlessly on this manual. We have received insight from numerous departments. We've also sent it around. The CAO has looked at it. And so we are finalizing the last chapter of the PPM, which is the emergency procurement. We know that there are different types of emergencies, so we want to ensure that we have a entire chapter that is to that emergency to make sure that we're covering everything. In addition to the PPM, we're also doing an SOP, standard operating procedures, for solicitations, and we're also doing a buyer's manual. All three of these will be an addendum to a CAO policy that we will present to CAO Montano, and we are looking to rescind about 8 or 9 of the CAO policies because we want to make this the one source of truth for everything procurement. This is what we've heard from the council, this is what we've heard from the departments, and so we're trying to streamline and ensure that there's one document that everyone can go to that will be procurement related.
Great.
And that is slated to be distributed to the CAO by the end of this month. Okay. Updated website with original forms, including easily understood form names. I was one who, when it was time for me to fill something out and I would go over to our website, I saw the list of what the document was, but I didn't understand what it was, right?
Right.
And so we took that, streamlined it, we're putting it in folders, ensuring that if you're looking for everything ITB related, it's all in one folder. If you're looking for RFP, everything related is going to be in one folder. So that way you can go directly to it, get what you need to do, and everything that you need will be in that one folder for you, and easily understood names. And that is slated also to be completed by the end of this month. Majority of this is.
Has, Frida, I'm going to ask my ultimate question then, but on this, has this like been beta tested on some public, and so gotten feedback on names yet, or this is just kind of using common sense and trying to get, you know, DR342796, right, changed, because that's what it is, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what we did. And just like we did with the manual, we
Right.
did engage some departments and sent them the new updated names, and they're saying, yes, I totally understand it. We did it in-house as well with finance, and they're like, yes, we totally understand what this is now. We're not having a guess.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson.
Yes, you're welcome. Process for non-responsive bids. We know that this was a hot topic for us. The recommendation was to implement a clear process for vendors to understand how to submit a responsive bid specifically for ITBs. We evaluated the current process, not just for ITBs, but for all solicitation types. Because what we found was if it was deemed non-responsive, or if it was not deemed non-responsive, and you submitted your, for RFP, right, well, for ITB, and you did not know if it was responsive or not. So we moved to saying anyone who submits, whether you win or not, we're going to let you know if your response would have been responsive or non-responsive. If it was going to be non-responsive, we're explaining to you why, so that you can understand that. Because we understand from vendors and suppliers, it's being deemed that way, but they don't understand why. So we're opening up, making sure that we're educating the vendor community on what it is that we need them to do so that they can submit great responses, so that they can get more business with the city.
Councilmember Green?
I have a fundamental question about responsiveness, and it probably involves lawyers. Do you give an opportunity for someone to become responsive? Or does a bid get rejected because it was not responsive? All right, it's a challenge.
I'll
question.
let our PA, Mr.
Yes.
Simmons,
Thank you so
answer.
much, Councilman Green, for that question. When we've deemed someone to be non-responsive, they actually are withdrawn from that particular
Withdrawn,
bid.
okay.
Yes, sir.
Right.
And then, as Ms. Richardson said, when we determine them to be non-responsive, they're going to get a letter explaining why we deem them to be non-responsive, so to prevent them from being non-responsive when they bid on the next opportunity in solicitation. Yes, sir.
Right, and I'm kind of speaking to the public, but also because members of the council have raised that issue.
Right.
So you can't really give them an opportunity to adjust because you have other bidders, unless there's no bidder. And so that's the challenge.
Right.
And I say that to the public, do everything that you can to be responsive.
Correct.
Because there are others in line who will certainly have no hesitation taking the city to the court
Right.
if there's any suggestion of favoritism.
Correct.
To those who are watching, and I know it'll be in your correspondence, non-responsive means that something was clear that you should have done that you didn't do.
Correct.
So please, everyone, work to just be as responsive as possible.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And all bids are sealed, so we won't know that they're non-responsive until the bid closes and we have an opportunity to review each solicitation and proposal that have been submitted. Yes, sir.
Right, but you can't say you missed out on this particular document
Right,
that you
there's
should have
no
provided.
cure period.
There's no
because
cure
it
period,
is
Right.
because there are other people in line,
Yes, sir.
and it's legal complications.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
The Office of Procurement developed and embedded instructions template to be used in all solicitations. Further, we standardized the notification of award process to bidders for all solicitation types. The new process will ensure all vendors are notified if their proposal was determined non-responsive through a standardized notice of regret letter. The notice of regret will indicate why the proposal was deemed non-responsive, and the applicable SOPs and buyer's manual updated as well for this. Any other questions on this slide? All right.
My question, I'm going to say to them, but I just want you all thinking about it, is basically like the situation I think that we're all concerned about, which is money gets allocated like in November for January 1. I'm sitting in Councilmember King's seat, so I'll channel him. It's for playgrounds.
Okay.
And so how long should the process take if the money is allocated in order for the bid to go out, in order for the work to be done, and then make sure it doesn't get hung up in one place? That's all I want to know, is basically the speed with which, in theory, something ought to work. And then who's monitoring it? So we can save it to then, but I know you have all the slides, but to me, it seems like the ultimate question is
Sure.
how do we have the necessary guardrails so people don't abuse the system,
Right.
but at the same time, how does it work well for everybody too?
what we're looking at is the amount of time, just a consistent amount of time, how long a bid is out, and how long it takes to get a response. I think the issue oftentimes is not when it goes out the first time, it's when we won't receive any responses the first time. It has to go out to rebid.
Right.
And then we can adjust those days on how long it goes out. We're just trying to remain consistent, whether it's going to go out for 10 days, or 20 days, or 7 days. But the rebid typically goes out a little bit shorter than the initial bid, just to make sure we can get a response. We are having an opportunity where we get people that respond to bids. They're not responding the second time either. And that's where we have to focus on increasing the amount of individuals or vendors that want to do business with the city, to let them know that the opportunities are there. We've been doing that through our vendor clinics every Friday as of the last month. So we're going to start seeing some uptick in the amount of individuals that want to do business with the city with this new process.
Great. I guess, let's assume the bid goes out and either accepted the first time or even the second. Then between the bid becomes final, let's just say March 1st. How long between March and execution of the contract and beginning of the work? I think that's what people are really focused on, is that, I think we said, Frida, when we were having the meeting, that sometimes a contract that go to law 9 times for review. I mean, I just want to make sure that there's a process from March 1 to whatever it is, May 1, that it moves forward.
Yes, and we do have Mr. Andrew up here. And
Yeah.
we do have a slide on contracts.
Yeah.
We will answer that.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. E-signature for contracting. We wanted to start this. We went with DocuSign to go in for negotiations, and the vendor community is elated that we went to this. They do not have to have a wet signature now. They can DocuSign their contracts when we send it over to them, and we don't have to worry about them trying to email it back to an email address. It's totally within Brass, and they'll be able to upload that contract after they DocuSign it, and we can import that in. We have not moved to the other signatures at this time, but we did want to start slow and do this as a pilot, and so far it has been working well with the vendors doing the DocuSign. And that has been, we completed that in April. So that's been live in Brass since April. CAO memorandum reissuing revised versions of CAO policy 113. We added language to the PPM to clarify that all public works contracts over $5,000 must be in writing. We are currently working on Chapter 15 of the PPM, and in here, we will address the emergency procurements that we discussed on the first slide, from emergencies related pipe breaks to mayor, state, and federal declared emergencies. We have made a recommendation in the PPM to ensure that an annual is made following benchmarking after governmental entities for best practices in alignment with public bid law. The PPM would also be updated outside the annual review period if there are any public bid law requirements that change or for any other critical concerns. This request was made to adjust the change order review committee process for public works, essentially removing the Officer of Procurement and Office of Supplier Diversity from the review committee process. So we wanted to provide clarification and add instructions for departments related to contract management efforts. It is important that we have the Office of Procurement and OSD attend these meetings, so we have requested to remain in attendance. Ownership of contracts, including changes, is at the department level and with legal. Memorandum reissuing revised versions of CAO Policy 24R. This action item was to develop a detailed tracking of bids deemed non-responsive. Brass has been updated to track proposals submitted in response to solicitations that have been deemed non-responsive. Additional information will be captured in Brass that will identify the reason why. We actually went live with this 2 weeks ago, so you can see that information when you do. We have a drop-down menu, and we can choose why they were deemed non-responsive. So anyone, all of you with access to BRASS, when you go to contracts, you'll be able to see that information. BRASS can also be used to generate reports related to non-responsive bids, and the PPM and Buyer's Manual will reflect this process as well. We have implemented a new requirements checklist that will be completed by the end of this month as well. And the goal for this was to implement a new requirements checklist for each solicitation to inform vendors of the requirements associated with each ITB. The requirements checklist has been designed for all solicitation, ITQ, ITB, RFP, and RFQ. The checklist will be embedded in all solicitation documents, which will standardize the procurement process. And this is the slide you were talking about, Budget Chair Drew. So, contract amendments and BRASS, contracts and draft status. The previous BRASS process for service contracts with addendums prevented a vendor from submitting an invoice against the contract until the BRASS contract approval process was completed. This potentially had an impact on paying invoices timely while the contract was routing for approval. So we got together with our BRASS administrator, Mike Schmidt, and we wanted to come up with a way that vendors can continue to pay on the current contract that is open and activated, and routing an amendment as a separate contract. What we were doing previously, once they routed that amendment, it was attached to that original, so it shut down all activity from the supplier portal side. So now we are routing that amendment separately, and we have linked it in the background to the original contract so that that contract that is active can still be invoiced against, and the amendment is routing separately. The Finance and Systems Administrator recommended a process to address, and the process was improved in February 2025, and it is operational today. So that's been operational since February the 19th. And did you want to address the question, Andrew? They was talking about the routing from inception of the contract, once it's awarded, to when it becomes an active contract.
So, essentially, once a contract is awarded and it's converted from the event into the contract, it could take, depending on the steps necessary, it could take about 2 to 3 weeks to about 2 months, depending on what approvals are necessary. So it depends on whether we need to go through, like if it's an amendment to a CEA, or if it's an initial term of greater than a year, the 1 million stuff under 7010, then we have to get it in front of council. That's going to take a little bit longer. But generally speaking, a contract, we should be able to at least get approved through law department in a couple of weeks. And what we've been doing is working with departments proactively to make sure that everything is correct on the front end, making sure that everything is ready to go. So there's no negotiation or anything when it comes to, or not as much negotiation when it comes to us and BRASS. We're really just doing a pure approval.
So, again, just assuming best case scenario. I'm not trying, I know there's a lot of bad cases that happen all the time we can't plan for. But if bid goes out, it is responded to, there's no contest, it's finalized, it goes into the system. From soup to nuts, it ought to be 90-ish days. Does that sound about right?
Maximum, yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And on that, I did want to add, we did implement this week. You should have seen an email that we sent out. So now that those contracts that have to come before council to be approved, we have added a step within BRASS so that once it gets to that point to where the council has to approve it, that contract is now sent out to IGR, and they hold that contract, and then once it's approved by council, it's checked back into BRASS. So we have that metric added now, because before we did not know how long and why contracts were just sitting there waiting to be approved, but that's because we didn't have the city council step in, so we have added that in BRASS. And we are now at the point where we're updating a lot of the contracts, had the buyers when we implemented BRASS in 2019, so the buyers were the departmental contacts. So we have sent that email out to all department heads so they can update who the actual contact is in their department so that our brass administrator could get that information updated. That's not on the slide, but I wanted to update you on that. And then lastly, we have our project plan spreadsheet that we went through. Most of this is completed, and we just went through to show you all of those, the things that are ongoing, improve instructions for vendors. So that is on the supplier portal side when they log in to know how to view my PO, how to update and upload my invoice, how to view my payments. We have updated and are updating those manuals for them and job aids so that vendors can understand how to do that information. We also have the update CEO policies and executive orders. That's everything that we went through today. And also create central online database. We went through that as well. And the RFP language. And that is the end of the presentation. Any questions?
Councilmember Moreno?
Thank you. Back on the, when you are putting into the system the non-responsive bids.
Yes.
I remember in the past having conversations in committee about, if somebody forgot to check a box or something like that. And, then it would unfortunately be put into the non-responsive.
Yes.
Have you all worked through kind of, more of a friendly outreach to saying it's like, hey, you forgot to check this box instead of just putting them in the non-responsive list?
So what we have done is the checklist that we discussed, right? So we have put more information on the front end so that when they are filling that out, we've added more information to the checklist so that when they do submit it, we can make sure that they're submitting a great bid. Like Mr. Simmons spoke about, if it's an ITB and it's sealed, once it's sealed and we open it, we can't allow them to change anything.
Right.
Because they will show preferential treatment, and we can't get into that.
Yeah, I get it. I just still remember that one,
Yes.
that one, where it's like they literally forgot to check a box and it was like, oh, now we have to put you in the non-responsive. And so I can imagine why that would be frustrating, like a minor little mistake. But I do think that the upfront checklist would be helpful.
Yes.
And, just reminding everyone to double, triple check your application, make sure that it's all right before you submit it. And maybe even an explainer too in the checklist that, look, once we get this,
Yes.
it's
in there.
it.
It's in there.
Yes,
it is.
Great.
And remember, this is across all solicitations, so where you're speaking of the disconnect of them not knowing exactly where they missed the checkbox. I think over the last 2 months that I've been here, I've actually had interactions 8 times with vendors, and this is the part that they are excited about knowing, tell me what I did wrong. So now that the letter goes out, we can share with them exactly where we think that they made a mistake and how they can do better next time. So I think the interaction that we've had now with vendors, they just wanted to know exactly, hey, what did I do wrong this time? And we can see it getting better. So we can actually have metrics to know, hey, how our numbers for non-responsibilities are going down because we're communicating what they are doing wrong. Yes.
Got it. Appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you.
I know this has been a long time in the making. I just want to say thank you because I think, again, this is one of those, we come here and it looks like it's all been easy.
Right.
But it's been anything but, so I appreciate all the hard work everybody put into it.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll move, Councilmember Green.
I wouldn't mind seeing you all have a public, I know that this is a public meeting, but I'd be glad to host it where we bring those who are interested in the city's bidding process, and it can be just one. And we can be on the record as having said it, that we invite them to come somewhere to a library and hear about these changes, so especially so that they'll understand non-responsive and also the processes that people have to go through. This is just an aside that I'll just tell you. I talk to people in other parishes, and they aren't beating all these records. Very honestly, the 90 days processing of a contract is par for what goes on in other parishes too. They have the laws to abide by. But at the end of the day, communication is extremely important. Let's do that at least once, and you may find that you might want to do it more so that those who bid can understand these changes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mr. Simmons,
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for that, Councilman Green. Like I said, over the last 2.5 months I've been here, I've had about 6 or 7 presentations with vendors to where I can have an opportunity to tell them some of these things. So we want to make sure we invite you to the next procurement fair, which we're actually in the planning stages of doing now, and we will have those breakouts for vendors. We're going to have breakouts for department heads. We're going to have breakouts for our procurement teams that are embedded into the department, so we can transition what we're learning and building from the procurement manual, so we can make sure these processes are standardized. Again, we're 99% complete with that. So by the time we have the scheduled date for the procurement fair and the industry fair, we're going to do it in conjunction with infrastructure, and it's going to be pretty large where we can do some of the things that you just mentioned on today.
Let's be very deliberate. How to be responsive.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
All right, thank you all so much. Members, we will vote on items 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 are deferred. So let's get to item number 6. It's ordinance calendar number 35011. It is to provide an operating budget for transferring funds within the Office of Housing Policy and Community Development from 200, which is other operating, to personal services to cover administrative expenses. Councilmember Green?
Mr. Chair, is this to create oversight of the Housing Trust Fund?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry, it's being withdrawn.
Okay.
So I was not as informed as I should have been by myself, so we're only voting on 7 and 8. All right, there we go. All right, number 7 is calendar number 35112. It's to appropriate money for personal services for the purpose of delivering medication and medical supplies during a large-scale public health emergency. And it transfers $32,000 from Louisiana Department of Health and Human Services to the Federal Department of Health and Human Services in the Health Department. I know we have 2 comment cards from the Phillipsons, so you are welcome to speak now. Each of you will have 2 minutes.
So just want some clarity on what this is exactly. What are these funds for? That's my question to start.
All right.
Can anybody answer that? Nobody from the CAO's office can answer my question.
Well,
That would probably, what are these funds for, sir? Nobody's not even paying attention.
Yeah.
How do we know why we're 18 million short on property tax?
well, I mean, Mr. Phillipson, I get frustration, but wait, hang on. Let's just see what the answer is to your question. This is on, guys, this is on item number 7, and it's about transferring funds, it's also grant funds, too. So I'll just point that out. That's not city money, that's outside money. Within the health department, from 200, which is other operating, to 100, which is personal services, and it says for the purpose of delivering medication and medical supplies. So it's taking money that is grant money that is outside of, or was
Public
originally
health
placed in
emergency.
operating and putting into personal
For a
services.
public health emergency.
Yes.
Do we know that we have a public health emergency right now?
Well, I think the issue is when there is one, that they're prepared to respond to.
But we have an issue now where we don't even have enough NORD lifeguards to open up all the pools. I'd rather see money like this, since it's Department of Health. It can't go there, even though it's a life safety thing?
No, it's federal grant money directed.
can't
It cannot
touch
be moved around. Federal grant money cannot be moved around like that.
Okay.
So this is not, there are probably other areas where that's a salient argument, but this grant money is specific to health and hospital specifically, and all grant money is trapped within the 4 corners of sticking within a department. So this is not regular tax money we can just move around.
Look, I got 10 seconds. I'll just say this. I'm very upset about the issues with the public school, lack of funding, the issues with NORD, with the conditions of the parks, and the life.
No, we can't do that. You can't see time anymore. Sorry, that's another rule we changed too. All right, Darnell?
So back to the emergency funding. So what exactly is it going to be like a distribution center? I mean, like if it's during a hurricane, like giving out medical supplies, like I'm just trying to, so we were in Florida last year for one of the really bad hurricanes, and so it was definitely a different experience because, you know, it was almost like they had the lighthouse, whatever, and it was like CVS and the urgent cares, they were all together, and people just had to get to those places, whether it was the Publix pharmacy or whatever, and it just sounds like this is just a bit primitive, like we're delivering stuff. I mean, like, it's just like you would think that you'd want people coming to you so you can do x-rays if they need, you know, a shot, like a tetanus shot or whatever. Just like, I don't understand it, and then why is it just 30-something thousand? Like, it's just odd.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there is a reason, which is Mr. Large is here, so let's see what the CA's office has to say.
Hi, so as Council mentioned, federal funds do have very specific uses.
Right.
So this funding is from the City Readiness Grant, and it is specific to emergencies. This funding also, if there is not an emergency, this particular funding can be carried over from year to year, so this balance can carry over. So if it's not used this year, next year it could be used. This funding was actually included in the budget initially for this year. There was an error by the department and they had the wrong fund number listed when it was adopted. So right now they're actually looking to get the fund updated as well this time.
So, in other words, primarily this is like a cleanup thing because there was just a mistake. We all make mistakes.
You all already adopted the funding. It's when you did the adoption last year in November.
And so it was in the wrong fund and we're moving it to the right fund.
Correct.
And that's what it ought to be, primarily, and then obviously secondarily, these are federal funds that are being used for emergency.
They come to us via the state, but they're federal, passed through the state for federal funds.
Yeah.
For the health department, they've had it when I was in the health department, so the money carries over year to year, and it does help out with supplies for hurricanes or other national events. It helped us as well during COVID when we were having some funding issues. We were able to dig into these funds to buy items that were needed for that emergency.
Okay, all right. Any other questions from the dais? All right, seeing none, I move for approval. Item number 7, been seconded by President Morel. 4 yeas, no nays. All right, last item on the agenda for today, before we adjourn, is ordinance calendar number 35114, to appropriate additional grant funds to the Office of the Mayor to purchase equipment and supplies for projects that were awarded for year 2023 pursuant to the State Homeland Security Grant. It is a whopping $8,600 that moves money from intergovernmental revenues to grant contributions. So moved by President Morel, seconded by Vice President Moreno. 4 yeas, no nays.
Can I do a first closure before we adjourn?
You can.
All right, I believe this is our last meeting with Amy McCarron. So I would like to thank her for her service over the last 3 years. It's been a pleasure working with you with budget. I know that my staff in particular has harassed you quite frequently when we don't understand something in the budget. So I've looked forward to working with you, and I wish you well on whatever you do next. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. I would like to add myself to the harassing category when it comes to budget matters. So I appreciate Amy answering all of my little questions that I have from time to time. All right, so with that, Councilmember Green, what? No, we're not doing number 9. Yeah, I deferred it already. 9 and 10 are both deferred. All right, so with that, 9 is deferred, 10 is deferred. Councilmember Green moves to adjourn, seconded by Councilmember Thomas. All in favor? Aye. 5 yeas, no nays. We stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.